Hi everyone, welcome to our virtual presentation titled Mexican University Youth's Identity in Social Networking Sites Through English as a Foreign Language. My name is Esther Hugues Santa Cruz. I have a master's in educational innovation and currently I am a student in the doctoral program in humanities at the Universidad de Sonora in Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico.
And I am Nolvia Cortez Román, professor of the graduate program in humanities at the Universidad de Sonora.
In this presentation, we'll be talking about a research proposal in progress. To do so, we will provide brief background information on Mexican public university students and their participation in digital culture, followed by the research questions, a brief review of the supporting literature, the proposed research methodology, and some preliminary findings from the piloting stage. Towards the end of the presentation, we provide some very preliminary conclusions with the intention of receiving your feedback and answering any questions you might have.
Okay, so to provide you with more context, we'll be describing the new scenario that we perceive for Mexican youth in digital culture. In Mexico, as a developing country, social inequities persist in our educational system, and these are addressed constantly in official discourses about education. Since the 2000 presidential campaigns, government initiatives have prioritized English and information and communication technologies instruction in public education. And as a result, the national educational curriculum includes these subjects as compulsory. It is important to mention that inequality still persists, especially in the quality and availability of trained educators and resources. But it is a fact that most current students in urban Mexico have had at least some training in information and communication technologies instruction and English, and thus has impacted the types of knowledge and skills these students bring to the university level. While we see that such instruction has provided advantages for children and young adults in digital literacy, there is still a dearth in research as to the effect and quality of these initiatives. On one hand, we can observe a new social scenario where digital culture permeates everyday activities. Young adults alone privilege the use of digital platforms for work and entertainment purposes. In Sonora, the state where this study takes place, 71% of the population has access and uses internet. And these young adults have had at least some level of EFL instruction in their educational trajectories. However, we say this with caution because of the disparity in the quality of EFL instruction. However, we can safely say that English is no longer a complete stranger to our current college students. So we believe that this is not an isolated phenomenon, as computer-mediated communication is increasing and permeating our global society through the use of social networking sites and where English plays an important role. Yet in Mexico, we know little about university students' use of English in computer-mediated communication. That is, that generation of students who were impacted by explicit educational policies that prioritized English and ICT instruction. We know that the use of information communications technologies is fragmented in society, and there exists a digital divide among the levels of socioeconomic statuses. And despite the expansion of English, we lack information about the use of EFL in Mexico in such contexts. Researching this phenomenon not only addresses English as a foreign language in computer-mediated communication, but also the practices that build upon these youth's identities. The new forms of communication lead to forms of participation in interactions with CMC, and the access to English as a foreign language forges new identities related to the use of a second language.
So, the research proposal seeks to find answers to the following research questions. How do Mexican university youth construct their identities when participating in social networking sites through interactions in English as a foreign language? Specifically, what forms of participation do these students use on social networking sites? How do these students use English as a foreign language in their participation on social networking sites? And what meanings do these students give to English as a foreign language on social networking sites participation? Empirical research by the mentioned authors focus on the use of a second language in different contexts in participation or interactions through different digital platforms and identity. These studies reveal the importance of the forms of participation in digital environments and the use of the second language. Moreover, this research highlights the importance of acknowledging second language identity through participation and interaction in computer-mediated communication on digital environments such as social networking sites. Our approach to identity is viewed through post-structuralist lens as fluid and constructed in linguistic and social interaction, where identity practices and resources are mutually constitutive. Therefore, the use of English as a foreign language in social networking sites is viewed as a sociocultural practice. Therefore, identity is analyzed through interactions. In this sense, we see that identity is a discursive construct that emerges in interaction. Specifically, we are interested in users' online participation, and although we've observed that there is no clear definition of the concept, participation is understood in this study as specific forms of expression in the actions or activities users deploy in social networking sites, such as signing in, being a member of an online community, sharing information, and creating or producing content. This way, identity construction is accomplished through forms of online participation. Finally, but not least important, the framework in this proposal includes activity theory as a lens to analyze identity through different forms of participation, specifically in the actions developed by the second language users of the social networking site. In a nutshell, we view participation in social networking sites through English as a foreign language as a way of constructing identity. This will be analyzed according to activity theory within a sociocultural perspective.
Okay, so the scope of this research is qualitative, and it's developed among a population of Mexican young adult students with an intermediate or advanced level of English at the Universidad de Sonora, a university which is located 260 kilometers from the Sonora-Arizona border. The study is being held in two stages. The first stage, which is about to be implemented, is the application of a survey to describe in general terms the use of social networking sites, including all the actions and the activities. This will allow for a descriptive component to the study, but also the purpose is to find and select the participants for the next stage who are able to accomplish the following two criteria. First, that they know and use English at least at an intermediate level, and that they participate in social networking sites. The second stage is an in-depth case study to explore identity construction by English as a foreign language users' participation in social networking sites. At this stage of the study, data will be collected through autobiographies, online observation, including all the activities and the entries, reports, and the interviews held before and after online observations.
A pilot stage was held the first half of the present year, requesting language learning autobiographies with the purpose of exploring experiences with technology and the use and learning of English as a foreign language. The participants were second semester students of the BA in English language teaching of the Universidad de Sonora. They have an intermediate and advanced level of English, but all of them perceive themselves to have advanced levels of English. As you can appreciate on the slide, the findings in this pilot stage were that they perceive that technology has an important role in their learning processes, that Mexican university students perceive social networking sites as spaces to develop different language competences, that they use English in different social networking sites to communicate with other people around the world, and that they mentioned the following social networking sites as often used, such as YouTube, Metroflog, MySpace, MSN Messenger, Facebook, and Twitter.
Okay, so as a conclusion until now, we can say that there's still a lot to do in Mexico about participation, equity, and inclusion, because much information is still needed to clearly identify the roles of digital literacies in foreign language learning and teaching and biliteracy development. This present study will provide data to develop more research in the field and will hopefully provide more information that will address such inequities at the national level, but also on a global level. Access to resources and equitable quality of education are still problems that are in dire need of addressing in Mexico. But it is also a fact that times have changed in our national educational scenario, which in turn have impacted our youth's actions and identities. So we find a need to expand knowledge and conduct in-depth studies of Mexican EFL users' participation in computer-mediated communication interaction practices as a relatively new but rarely studied reality of Mexican youth. Also, we find a need to describe the new ways of using EFL and the role in constructing their identities, and the need to acknowledge differences of participation and identity construction between active but also passive participants in online environments, specifically in social networking sites, as forms of legitimate participation.
Also, we have identified some possible outcomes as a result of our research, such as acknowledging if Mexican youth perceive their knowledge of English and participation in computer-mediated communication as symbolic capital, and understanding if legitimacy can still be questioned but also constructed through English as a foreign language use in computer-mediated communication.
So we thank you for listening, and we would appreciate any feedback as well as questions, given that this research project is still at a preliminary stage. So we're open to any suggestions or any constructive criticism from your part.
Muchas gracias.